Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Two Minds, One Podcast, episode 16, if you guys could believe it. I'm Nathan,
Raymond.
and welcome back. It's been just over, 2 weeks? A
No,
week?
we've been consistent again. Back
Okay.
on point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Back on the consistency treadmill.
Yes.
Um,
Just before we get started, if you guys want to listen to an audio version only, you can find it on Apple Podcast.
Link.
We'll put the link in the description below.
Yes. So, you said there's something an interesting topic that you brought up that affects everyone born post-internet.
Post-technological advancement.
What do you define technological advancement? Do you define advance that as the modern internet?
Yeah, like computers.
So anybody born
like-
after the 90s?
Yeah, but
Because the
more,
90s
I
was
would
the
say...
dot-com bubble, no?
Yeah, but I would say more. I think it affects more the generation that has computers that can do more. Because like when I grew up, computers, it was basically just a black screen with letters on it.
Okay, but
Initially,
but
right?
compared
So
to
it
when
wasn't-
computers started, that was a gigantic advancement.
Oh, that was
because
huge because you had a screen.
Saturn V went to the moon with the computer that had the processing power of like 5 kilobits.
Yes,
I
but
want you to understand that.
I'm talking about the attention grabbing of these of the thing now.
You're talking about how interconnected everyone is to the internet,
to each other,
to technology. How
Yeah.
everyone, uses
Yeah.
their phone.
and the impacts that has on relationships, on like just real like personal relationships, connections that you build by talking to people, right? Other than
So you want to talk?
other than just messaging each other on Facebook or Instagram,
MySpace. For those of you that remember MySpace, shout out. But you're talking about the interpersonal relationships between people and how technology has changed that and how people feel, how the irony is that we're more connected than we've ever been before, but more people feel
But
alone.
we're more connected than ever, but
Yes.
yet so far away.
So isolated.
Yes, from each other, because it's like instead of reaching out, right, or like what would we used to do, send a letter, and then we would really miss people. We'd be like, man, if you move away from your parents, an example, right, that would be a good one. You move away from family, right, for work or for school, whatever, right, it wasn't easy to stay in contact. So you would go months, a semester, right, without actually seeing them and talking to them in person. Maybe letters, right, that you would mail. So you really grew the sense of missing your like urge of seeing them if you enjoy being around them, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying because some people don't like their family, but so you would go back and it would be this like excitement, right? It's a different than we do now, because now it's like you go off to college, you just FaceTime once a week. You don't really grow to miss.
Yeah, but I feel like the FaceTime is still evident of the similarities as like the letters. They serve the same purpose because it's not a one-for-one direct replacement for being in person.
No,
which is
it's
what you're
not,
getting
but
at.
it's better than the letter, because a letter will take 5 to 7 days to get to you.
Because because the letter
So,
has
like,
delayed.
you
The
have-
letter has delayed gratification, and now with our technology, we have significantly more instant gratification.
Exactly. So it's like you could FaceTime your parents every day or somebody, right? But with the letter, you have a whole week of events to talk about, of things that happened. But when you do it every day, it's like you kind of run out. I think because something new or exciting or something doesn't happen every day, right? Small things happen every day. That's what I mean. And so you feel connected, but it's just not the same. Disconnected. Like
I get what you're trying to say, but I don't know if I wholeheartedly agree with that direct analogy. I do agree with you in saying that there was significantly more delayed gratification or delayed response. Things were not as instantaneous as they are now. You want to call somebody, you don't have to walk to a payphone or a dial-up phone or your house phone, right? You pull out your phone and you call them, right? You message them if you want to write them a letter,
yes,
right? Versus having to sit down and create the commitment. So a lot of things of communication have been streamlined, but I think what you're trying to say is that while they may have been streamlined and are significantly more efficient, you would think that it would in turn generate more efficient communication in relationships between loved ones, but it doesn't. You would think it's like a 1-to-1 correlation.
Yeah,
more communication equals better relationship or better quality of relationship, but it doesn't seem to correlate like that.
Yes. No, it even turns out to be that some people, like, I think what I'm getting at more is some people find it easier to talk to you through technology versus talking to you in person. Like,
but I don't think
there are some things that they can't even say.
I don't think
in person, but they have no problem writing it to you in a text message.
I don't think that's directly related to technology. I feel like that's something that has always been present. However,
I think that's but there's more people, so it's a consequence.
No, however, I think that before there was not many other options in how to go about communicating with people. You really only had 3 options. You don't communicate, you figure out a way to use writing language, right? Written language through a physical written or a poem, song, etc., creative expression, or direct communication, which unfortunately, funny enough, is the least efficient of communication because it leaves so much for interpretation because there's so much information in how you say things, right?
How would it be less efficient than talking and then messaging? You could just message what you talk, and it's the same thing. You're missing information, so it's not really less efficient.
However, yes,
I feel when you talk in person, you actually get more information. You can hear tone of voice, language, facial, body cues.
Yes, but for someone that struggles with that interpersonal relationship or that communication first person to person, right? It can be overwhelming.
Yes, but yes, I agree for the people that are born like that. But some people don't learn the social cues that they could have learned because of technology.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
Like,
I understand.
I'm not saying technology is bad. And also, I like it. And it is great. I'm not saying like that. I'm just saying, like, trying to point out there's always a bad, not a bad, but like,
yes, I
a
get
disadvantage to an advantage.
There's ups and downs.
Yes.
And there's nothing has a pure upside without a downside. I understand that. And I do agree that personal communication, talking, confronting that in-person communication is something that is less common now than it was before. Communication skills in general and speaking is less common.
It less people can recognize certain things. You notice it. Younger kids talking to each other, they don't recognize certain cues. You're like, how did they miss that in that person?
Okay, but it's hard. It's hard to denote that with children. So I feel
I don't mean children as in 6 or 7 years old.
No, when I say children, I think 18 and below. Children, 18 and below. That's a child.
But 18 is just a number the government decided.
Okay. We all agreed. It's okay. We've agreed upon.
Yes.
Okay, then if you want to go by the biological sense of an adult, it's when you're biologically done maturing. 25. 25 and under would be a child then, because it's when your body's fully matured and your brain's fully matured, which means your brain is no longer developing, which means 25 is your peak year of brain capacity, of mental fortitude, and all that, and it only goes downhill from there. So it's semantics. It's like time.
Yes.
Time's fucking made up. Time is just how our brain.
Space and time are one is not made up, bro.
No, but time is made up.
I'm just kidding.
Time and the way that we
the way we perceive time
and the way we as humans perceive time and we denote time.
So it's not made up. It is just the way that time is for us.
It's made up. Time is a part of the universe. Yes.
Yes. No.
But way we have described
if it is a truth to us, how can it be made up?
Because it's not a universal truth.
That doesn't mean that it's not true. Because, look.
Explain to me a definition of time without using
the human interpretation. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is an example. We recognize time in the way that we've made up time to recognize these moments that pass us by, right? But that's our reality, specifically to us. So it's true to us because that's what we experience, and that's what we called it. The event of what we're experiencing, we called it time passing, right? But like this,
what I'm saying is, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. Yes, I agree with you, and that time is how we've defined it. The way time is defined currently for humans is a series of events. The way your brain perceives time is A happened before B, and B happened before C, and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Right? And that's just from our own brain trying to make sense of the world. As such, we have taken this sequence of events and implied that to make sense of the world around us. The same way we have made sense of X is forward, Y is forward, X is forward and back, Y is left and right, Z is up and down, right? And we generate these mathematical equations and physical equations in physics to govern what the universe does. However,
to explain
it, right?
So we can try to
However,
understand it.
when you look at all those are relative coordinates, right? Time is required to explain how things evolve, right? From a quote unquote beginning to an end. But I feel like the reason we have a beginning to an end is because a human life has a beginning to an end. And so we think of time as that kind of a concept, right? When in reality, time is just like another part of the universe. It's just there.
It's another element, and it's
endless. It's just there, exactly.
Yes.
And we're the only ones who happen to want to quantify it and know it as it passes by, right? Understandably so, because like we said, we're humans. We have a beginning and we have an end. We have
we are here.
We are limited in our time and are limited in our existence, and as
within
such,
the universe.
As such, we want to quantify it.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
So where were you going with this? With the
I don't remember. You got me on a rant about time.
Yeah, we kind of went off topic there. It was the challenge that I was saying that some people didn't grow certain social cues because they grew up with so much technology, so much way to communicate with people.
Yeah.
Than other than having face to face.
Yes, that is.
And you were talking something about that.
That is a byproduct of, being born, having so much access to the internet. But I feel like it's too soon to really say how.
No.
How much? It is. Because you're talking, it's the kids that were born in 2000 have only known 23 years of the world, and they've only known the world with the internet and the modern internet too, where things was actually relatively fast. Right?
It's really fast.
Right. In comparison to how smart and portable. Yeah. It's significantly faster. Orders of magnitude faster than it was beginning. But
big time.
it's tough to really see, right? But it's not just, I don't want to just focus on how technology has affected our relationships negatively. It has also affected them positively.
Oh,
it,
yeah.
it has allowed us to have this, depending on who you ask, but to allow us has been a big part of having this time of extended peace, which is very, very unnatural in human history. There has not been a period of time where we have not had major wars. And I know that the scope of my understanding is limited, and I know that in this time of peace, there have been many civil wars and
Secret wars.
not even secret wars, but just wars that are not privy to the public eye.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Middle East in most of the 2000s has been in, constant fighting over who belongs where, and that's all due to previous, that's all due to previous Cold War, Soviet Union, versus Soviet Union versus United States times, but for the most part, what I define as peace is no world war or war of that magnitude, right? There was the Cold War, which was less of a war and more of a time of showing who was the better society and who was the better side, who was the better government, essentially.
Technology and a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah.
And so there was war, but not in the sense of, as in World War I, World War II, where the casualties were so large and so great and so vast. And no wars involving multiple countries, right? And so technology has played a key part in that.
Oh, yeah.
In communicating effectively, in being able to, discuss and have the world trade that we have now, right?
Oh, no, I mean...
And it's so integral even into,
It even allows you to have relationship, like, keep a good connection with
it gives you
somebody
good business relationships from someone else in the world.
No, not just good business, just, like, you meet a stranger and you guys really hit it off. You might lose connection with them, but nowadays, it's so much easier to stay in contact and build a strong relationship.
Mm-hmm. And I do feel that while technology and communicating over the internet and through Skype and, whatever, Facebook, however you're communicating, isn't a replacement for direct socializing, because we are ultimately social creatures that require communication and like in person socializing. For those that live in remote areas or who live in areas where they are outcasts and they can find refuge and friends and people that are genuinely good. I know it's hard to tell with the internet, but there are cases, just as there are cases of bad stuff happening, there's cases of good stuff happening. People having lifelong friendships with someone they've known from halfway across the world.
Yeah,
right?
They used to be pen pals, but now they're
just friends.
Now they're friends. Now they're
exactly
real people you can message or FaceTime or. No, I mean, technology has been awesome. Look at like 3D printers, right? Like nowadays, now you can have your son. Let's say you have a kid, right, or a child, and you have some kind of software to design, and you have a little cheapy 3D printer. They start playing with it. They're gonna be able to start designing these things and printing them out in real world, like, right, making their imagination real.
Yes, technology has allowed us to do
so much different. So it'll help shape and grow them in who knows what kind of ways, right?
Yes.
More engineers or problem solvers.
Funny you said more engineers. That reminded me of something.
What?
Completely unrelated to the topic, but highly interesting. I was reading this paper that said that we, as of right now when we're making this video, the population of the planet is about 8 billion people. 7.9,
Almost 8 billion people.
8 or 7.9, whatever. 8, we round up 8 billion people. And
9 billion with animals. More, probably.
no, but we're not talking about animals. We're talking about humans here. And studies were shown back in the 50s, in the 60s, when the population boom after World War II, that if we continued on the trajectory by 2030, we would be at, they expected to be at like 5 billion people, and they were like, that's crazy, right?
Way past that.
We're way past it, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's due to many things that have changed, and it's changes in medical science, and saving lives, and vaccines, etc. Just things that generate prolonged life. More understanding of what is actually good for you, what is actually bad for you.
It's crazy that like birth rates were, women dying during birth was pretty big back, like not that far ago.
You want to hear something crazier?
And like
women back then were more fertile, for a more scientific term. There has been so long story short, back to they guesstimated that eventually we would reach a maximum population of about 8 billion and start declining. Newer studies have shown we're going to reach somewhere around 9 to 10 billion before we hit the peak of. So back in the day, they said 8 billion would be like the no holds barred, the Earth couldn't do anymore, and we would continue to grow upward, and we'd start fighting for resources and everything. Well, because of technology and everything like that, that hasn't happened yet. But turns out that the researchers that did the math were really good, but they didn't account for two things, right? So they were always told that we were going to have a population explosion of, we're going to have the Earth would have too many people, right? So many, like 11, 12 billion. They're like, yeah, if this keeps going, we're going to exponentially grow.
Yeah, we're going to grow so big it's going to ruin the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that we've been unintentionally, nuking ourselves or stopping that from happening, which is really interesting when you look at it. So there's many factors that go into this. So a few
nuking
of them,
ourselves?
A few of them, say nuking the population.
I know what you mean.
A few of the factors that go into this is that you look at families back in the day, especially in most of history. Most times, because it's only
recorded history,
we're talking about pre-industrial revolution.
Yeah.
Even during the industrial revolution, this could apply as well.
Yeah, it was like 4 or 5 children.
The average
per family.
The average was like 4 children, and that's 4 children that make it to adulthood, because during them, 50% of children wouldn't make it to adulthood. So in order for you to have 4 children to make it to adulthood, you actually had to have statistically 8. Right? And so that accounts for, why the population was growing so fast, why we grew so fast up to the point. But now, as technology increased and science increased, and, we made strides, now if a child's born, its likelihood to reach adulthood is that of, barring any, what they call freak accidents, right? Like getting hit by a car or something like that, right? It's over 90%.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're born relatively healthy and normal, you're almost guaranteed to make it to adulthood.
Almost.
Right? So that's one thing that they didn't account for. And that, because of that, people and families on average are having less kids. Right?
Yep. Well,
and you look at it before too, the kind of labor. No. We're not even talking about the economy.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with it. Because studies have shown when you have kids, you need to make more money, so you make more money. You find ways to make more money. You do the impossible. Unfortunately, that is the truth. Right? But
there's studies that show that the economy does play a burden in how many kids people have now. nowadays.
Now, see, we're not getting to that yet.
No,
we're
no,
still
no,
we're
I
still
know.
not to nowadays. Like, we're still back 1800s.
No.
So you look at how many people, the kind of work that was required to
You were farming.
You're farming.
You grew all your food.
Yes, or you were a lot of hard labor and a lot of help that was required, which is why families had so many kids.
Mm-hmm.
There's, unfortunately to say, no other better labor than cheap free labor from your child, right? Because you don't have to just keep them alive,
Mm-hmm.
and they can help you do the chores and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So, child survival rates increasing reduces the number of kids that families have, right? Because the need for them, right? If you need to have 4, for example,
Yeah.
to maintain the farm, you only have 4, right? You don't need to have 8 no more.
Well, you also have the fact that
And
jobs
then-
aren't as hard no more.
Exactly. No, and then there is the women empowerment movement. All for it. Love it. Agree. Women should be able to do what they want with their life. They should be able to choose a
Yeah.
career. They should be able to choose, and be able to work the same job as a man, right? If they so choose, right? 100% power to you. Respect that. Not saying there's anything wrong with it. However, women choosing their career and choosing to work has affected the age at which women start to have children.
Yes, which
And
also
the
affects
age,
how many they
which
can
affects
have
effectively how many they can have
and how fertile
and
they
how
are.
fertile they are and how many complications there are, right? And how hard it is, which also affects your likelihood to have another child following having the first child.
Yep.
Right? And so scientists understood that fact, and they understood the other fact that I stated before. However, the one fact that they didn't account for, which threw off their math, was the fact that as time has gone on, women have gotten less fertile. As time is becoming more and more and more frequently that couples struggle longer
Mm-hmm.
to get pregnant than they did before.
Well, it happens more in first world countries. It's bigger in.
It's worldwide. It's big.
Yes, but not as much in other like.
What are you gonna say, Africa? Because that's the only continent where it's not.
No, Indonesia.
It's still present there. Maybe not to the same severity.
No, yeah. I think it has a lot. So, I don't know if there's a study on this. I haven't looked it up because this is the first time I'm hearing and got intrigued about it. But I know that, like, birth control is just hormone estrogen, an overdose. That and something else, right? Just tipping like too much in your body stops them from producing the eggs and releasing the eggs, right?
Do you know what
But
birth control does to the woman's body? Here's a fun
like
fact for you.
specifically,
What it does,
No.
what it tricks into doing, thinking.
yeah, no. Let me finish before I forget my idea. And a lot of the products we've produced and thrown into the water and all that, the BPAs that cause estrogen spikes in bodies in everybody, male or female, or however you want to call yourself, right? Is probably also affecting and leading to the fertility problem.
Yes. However,
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. The direct cause.
Not the direct
Look.
cause.
I'm not going to claim to know a direct cause. I'm
No,
not going to
yeah,
claim
there's
to
no
have
way.
in the study that they gave a direct cause as to what's causing it. I don't know. But it has been seen over the last 50 to 70 years, just the amount, even in men, sperm count has gone down.
Mhm.
Fertility rate in women gone down, right? So,
There
and
has
this
been
could
recent
be
studies of
and-
sperm count come
here-
down is due
and
to the
this
higher
could
estrogen
be
in the water and stuff like that.
one of this is an idea that there could be the fact that life is easier and people's bodies are responding to an easier life.
No,
That is 100%
that could
possible.
also be a case too.
But
you don't.
neither here nor there. Back to the birth control thing, just to educate people.
Mhm.
What birth control does to women, it tricks their body into thinking they're pregnant, and when they're pregnant, they don't get their period
Yeah.
or their menstrual cycle. and that's all it does. Does that for 3 weeks out of the year, 3 weeks out of the month, and then you stop taking it, and it goes, oh, okay, here you go.
Yep.
Right, as long as the person's consistent. However, it comes with all the side effects, weight gain, depression, mood swings, etc. Because essentially you're messing with the hormones in your body.
Yeah, that's
right?
exactly what you are.
Which, I'm advocate for, using protection in whatever way, shape, or form a person chooses.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But just things to consider. Especially those new ones that are more invasive and not pill related, where they are,
all the injections.
The injections or the stuff, yeah. But so that one key factor of declining birth rates, right, coupled with family sizes decreasing, right, has led to all major developed countries to have a population issue. There are more people growing old and not having children than there was back then. So back in the 50s in the United States, if I remember correctly, it was about 2.1 kids per household.
Woo!
Currently in the United States now, it's down to 1.9. And the reason it hasn't stagnated even further, like other countries like Japan or China, is because the United States has a very large immigrant population that comes in and boosts those numbers up, right? Mm-hmm. Not only the children per household, but also the young people that are able to have children, right?
Yep.
And so current studies that have been done say that right around 9, I think it's like 9.3 or 9.7.
Between 9 and 10 billion.
9 and 10 billion is the peak of the United States population, the peak of the world population, and then it's going to start declining. And it's not going to be because we're running out of food, not because we're running out of fresh water, not because we're running out of energy.
Having less babies.
It's because genetically we're having less babies, and there's many things leading us towards a,
it's a accumulation.
It's an accumulation of things, and it's going to cause very interesting things because it's going to cause a labor shortage, which is something that we have never experienced.
Well, Japan has that problem right now.
Yes, but the world has never experienced this.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, that's an example of what could happen, right? And it's because Japan has the...
Do you know why Japan's in that issue?
No.
It's very interesting.
You probably told me before.
It's very interesting why Japan's in that issue. I'm not going to touch on it for too long. Long story short, Japan, for a long time, was an imperial country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imperial nation. It means that it went out and it went to war and it conquered and it took resources from outside of its island and brought it back to the inside of the island.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the only way to sustain that is by constantly being in war, constantly invading new lands, constantly getting new resources, right?
It comes with a little bit of a problem doing that.
Yes. A lot of people tend to not like you.
Yeah.
So...
your population decreases too quickly. Yeah. There's a chance of losing a lot of people in the population.
So Japan's culture has always been very prideful and very, they're very a prideful nation, right? People. And so whenever they've gone to war, they're very, I don't know if the word I'm looking for is prideful, serious, it's very much so a serious matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so Japan experienced more losses in World War II due to what we would say self-inflicted harm rather than being taken out by the Allies or because they had their suicide bombers, and a lot of Japanese soldiers were told that instead of getting caught and being a prisoner, you'd rather kill yourself.
Yeah,
right. So a lot of young men died during World War II, right? And then you couple that with the fact that we dropped Hiroshima and Nagasaki on top of Japan, right? That has continued to affect generations, right?
Yeah.
Coupled with declining birth rates, coupled with the fact that there are less men, coupled with the fact that for some reason...
they live really long, too.
No, for some reason, it's dating and career are not evenly balanced, and many people really do choose to have a career over,
A family.
a family,
What?
which is really interesting as a
Man,
nation.
That just gets us on a tangent. That Japan has started recently implementing labor laws for how many hours somebody work, and this is recent,
Yes.
like within the last 10 years or so. That's from what I'm reading. So they stop people from working 7 days a week, 15 hours every day.
But
or
Japan
more.
is also too prideful of a nation to fundamentally address this issue at its core.
Yes,
and
because there's
instead
still a
have
lot of companies
decided-
that they call.
and instead have decided to go out with the whimper and have developed all of these automation and things that make their life easier, and a lot of things that don't require human interaction anymore
Mm-hmm.
because of their dwindling labor force. And so they've had to pivot.
They've adapted.
Right, which is funny because its neighbor, Japan's neighbor, China, across the sea, was experiencing a similar thing, right? So China had a long, bloody civil war, right,
Mm-hmm.
between the communists and the non-communists, right?
Yes.
And prior to that, China had experienced long famines as well. So when the Communist Party of China,
Well, yeah, they had a lot. Their population was humongous too.
yes,
They were
the
giving
population,
birth to a
right,
lot.
right after the communists took over, they were taking a census and they saw that their population was growing at such a rate. It's super fast. They're like, if this continues, eventually our population growth
Starve.
will be unsustainable, and we're already dealing with famine, and we're already dealing with things, right? And then the one-child policy was enabled to limit that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which unfortunately worked really well.
A little
Albeit
too well now.
too well now. Because now China is incentivizing its people to, have more children, because they reached that, that peak of population, and then now they're starting to decline, because for the first time in I think like 30 years, China's population has gone down. Whoo! Year over year, it had gone up. And the first time ever it's gone down. In that same year,
Mm-hmm.
India overtook China as the most populous country in the world.
I heard India have a lot of kids in India.
Yes, but
But what I was trying to say is technology. That's another advantage. How we got into it. All this information
yes, all
comes
this
from
information
technology.
Yeah.
With technology,
and
we
technology
get
is how they
data.
accepted to try to address these population issues.
Technology gives us the data that we need the studies, all this information. Because if we didn't have the technology, we're in the USA. There's no reason how or why we should know anything about China's population or
Okay,
any of that.
so
Because
first
we're
of all-
from the other side of the planet.
We're in the United States, which is unfortunately a very, lack of a better term, self-centered country, and a lot of the news of what's going on in the world doesn't usually reach our ears, us being the population, because for some reason we believe what's happening over, yonder on the other side of the country is more important than what's happening, across the world, right? Now, that a decision of which information is more important should be left up to us,
The listener. Yeah.
But obviously,
Yeah, but that's an advantage of technology, right? Is we know what's happening, and if we really want to know, we have the form to do it, to get it, right?
yes,
Which is probably what adds to the peace that you're saying that we've had for so long,
yes,
right? Because
because
I feel
it adds increased empathy to know what's going on.
oh yeah, and most likely most of the not the people in power, your regular citizens, don't tend to be the people that want to go to war.
Yes, unfortunately, it's normally the decision of one or two
Couple
handful
people
of
in power.
individuals in power that choose to go to war or choose to make, declarations of war or generate or provoke issues,
Yeah.
right? Or have agendas and
Have
want to push
agendas.
that agenda.
Oh,
right?
that movie we watched,
Which one? Vice
Vice.
on our
On
Vice President
Netflix?
Dick Cheney during the
Yes.
George Bush administration. And we're talking about the
If anybody
young George
hasn't watched
Bush.
that, you should watch it.
When did George Bush reign? He went from like 2004 to like 2012. 8 years, right?
He did. Yeah, he did 2 terms.
He did 2 terms. Yeah, he did. For those of you that don't know what the movie Vice is about, it's a drama documentary of the political figure Vice Cheney, Dick Cheney, Richard Cheney, and his life and how he moved his way through the
2001 to 2009.
There you go. How he moved his way through the American political system. And it's quite interesting to see how he was a drunk hillbilly from
Who didn't?
was it Montana or was it Massachusetts? No, Massachusetts.
No. It was one of the middle states. Kentucky.
Wyoming. It was
Wyoming?
Wyoming. It was Wyoming.
Yeah, it was Wyoming.
From Wyoming.
The state with the
Essentially-
least amount of people in it.
Essentially, for lack of a better term, kind of, white trash, right?
Yeah, hillbilly.
Hillbilly. Not that as an insult to anybody, but it's just a term we're being using. But he went from that, right, to vice president of arguably one of the most controversial
He was
presidencies
vice
of all
president
time.
/ president.
Yes. Yes, but most people don't know that.
No.
So for those of you that don't know, the way he got his start was he interned at a Congress meeting and he found a senator that he could intern for and was essentially a diligent, loyal servant, right? Which is any person who is in power or is seeking power knows that having people that are diligent, loyal servants to you, right, is one of the most important things. Right? Loyalty is key. And so with that, as that senator rose the ranks in the political sphere during the Nixon administration, he brought him with him. You bring your right-hand man with you as you move up. It's the same thing in the corporate ladder. If you want to move up in the corporate ladder, right, is you find your boss or whoever the person above you is, and you work together to make that person look good. And if that person is a real person that appreciates the hard work and sees that it's a mutually beneficial relationship, they will bring you up along with them and give you more opportunities as you push for more opportunities for them.
Yep.
Right? And so it's the same, it's a symbiotic relationship, which is what he did. And eventually, we're not going to go over the entire film, but eventually he gets all the way up to Speaker of the House, right? And then I think he becomes Speaker of the House, and then eventually after that he does become Chief of Staff for a president.
Yes.
After that, he stops. After being Chief of Staff, he kind of stops. At that point, he thinks about
retires,
he thinks about running for president, but he doesn't want to because one of his daughters, it turns out to be gay, and he doesn't want the negative publicity and attention to affect his daughter. And so he retires from the political game for an extended period of time and becomes essentially a CEO of a very large oil company. And then that's when he is approached by George Bush. I think it's George W. Bush, I think is the correct one. Junior, the younger Bush. And
he wants him as his VP.
He wants him to be his vice president, and he wants him to be his running mate. And for those of you that don't know, in the way the U.S. government system works, the president is one of the most important positions of power in the United States government. However, you would think the vice president would be the second most, But unfortunately, that's not the case. One can make an argument for
They're there as a head.
one can make an argument for Speaker of the House. One can make an argument for Secretary of Defense. One can make an argument for other
Treasury.
positions.
Yep.
Treasury, Supreme Court are more powerful positions, right? But a lot of the time, the vice president is essentially just there in case the president dies. And there are certain powers that are delegated to the vice president from the president, which makes it a very fluid role. And those powers are never concretely defined in the Constitution or in any document or trial that we can fall back on to solidify
essentially,
what the vice president does.
Dick Cheney says he has conditions to be his VP after rejecting him at times, and those conditions are things that he wanted to be in control of that should have been in control of only by the president, who has a check and balance, because VPs don't have check and balance in the government.
Yes.
So
what happens?
Watch it.
What happens is essentially in that Richard Cheney, he talks to the president and discusses with him that says that he will help him by taking some of the more boring roles off of the president's plate, as the president's plate is very large and has a lot of decisions. And some of those roles were,
really important roles.
Defense. They were, what was it? The other one, Treasury.
It was a lot of stuff.
It was
international
affairs, things like that, right? And so, because of that, it is believed that, not believed, but it's an interesting coincidence that during Dick Cheney's 8 years as vice president, the company he used to work for that he left, its stock grew.
And got paid to leave.
He got paid to leave. He got
an exit
bonus. That company's stock went up 500%. And it just so happened that a lot of the time that was spent
a lot of
in
deregulation
Iraq
happened also during that time.
Yes, a lot of time that was spent in Iraq
that still hasn't been undone.
Was done to take advantage of the copious amounts of oil fields that are available to the country and things of that nature. So there's a lot of...
No explaining the whole movie.
No, I'm not explaining the whole movie. I'm just explaining the political aspects of it, right? And yes, there's a lot of deregulation that happened. It's a fantastic film. It is a little bit slower paced. I highly recommend you guys give it a watch if you have it. It's currently available on Netflix. Not a plug for Netflix, just letting you know where we watched it. But yeah, ultimately, technology has impacted our world in many ways. And
there's another one, the movie we were able to see and learn about Dick Cheney.
It's both a blessing and a curse, right? But as any tool
to be
used, and how it's used can dictate whether it's good or bad.
Yes.
However, I do believe that is all the time we have for today. I do appreciate you guys spending your time here with us. If you learned anything new, let us know. If you like something, if you wanted to say something, we can have a discussion down in the comments. But thank you guys, and we'll see you guys next time.